The Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not come yet." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Did anybody bother to read the front of the bulletin?
Yes.
What did you think of that? That's what I used to feel. If God was that boring, I sure didn't want to hang with him. I think we're finding otherwise. What do you think about our miracle that we're talking about today? Wine. Fine wine, the best wine ever seen in this world, delivered at no charge. Sounds like a miracle I would like. You too? Yeah. This is a miracle that only a very few people saw. Only a very few people knew about. There was Mom, there was the disciples, and there were the servants. The groom didn't know where the wine came from. The partiers didn't know what had happened. They had all missed it. They got to enjoy the fruits of it, but they had missed the miracle. And if one of the servants went up and said, "Hey, guess where that wine came from?" They would have thought he was out of his mind. There's no way they would have believed a servant. God bless you. There's no way they would have believed one of the servants. So this was totally missed by most of the people. This was not one of those miracles that was done for thousands or hundreds or perhaps even 50. I mean, I don't know how many servants there were. So this was not a miracle that gained Jesus this great big huge following. It did make the disciples believe. It did, I'm sure, affect the hearts of the servants, but it didn't cause that great following. Like when he fed the 5,000, then everybody wanted to be with Jesus so they could get more food. It wasn't one of those miracles. These are the type of miracles that happen all the time. At least I think they happen all the time. Nobody realizes they're happening. People are being touched. Lives are being changed. Yet nobody really catches on what's going on. I think that kind of miracle has happened here at Redeemer. We talked a little bit about can anything good come out of Redeemer last week. Was that last week I said that? Yes. And I think that's the kind of miracle that is happening here. God has poured out some wonderful new wine, the finest wine we could ever imagine. And it's flowing out from here and touching others. It's touching lives. It's changing lives. Most people are unaware of it. They don't know what's going on. And if we went out and told people, this is that, God's filled us with wine, they'd tell us we were crazy. And maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. You know, embracing dreams can be messy. It can be confusing. The groom, I'm sure, was confused where the wine came from. The leper that Jesus heals, he's been separated from his family for probably years. Now he's going back into a family system that has changed. And if you add family drama to it, that can be really messy. Or how about the blind guy? He's been blind since birth. And now he can see. Now he has to get a job. Now he has to deal with society. He's never done this before. That can be pretty messy. I want to tell you a little bit about the messiness of our miracle. Maybe because I think it's fair that everyone is warned. And there will be some of you who will be perfectly okay with it. There'll be some of you who may find themselves very uncomfortable here. And if that's the case, I would beg of you, please come talk to me. There was a gentleman, and I have permission to tell this story. Because of broadcasting, I'm going to try my best to not use his name. You know how that works. There was a gentleman who came to our door about a year ago, needed help. I helped him. He came to church a couple times, and then he, poof, disappeared. I chalked it up to being taken. Oh, well, they used me. I'm getting used to that here. And left to go. Then he showed up again. Maybe a year later. I'm not 100% sure, but this was just a few months ago. He showed up again at our door. And yes, he needed help. And yes, I helped him. And he wanted to start coming to church. He wanted to become part of the Bible studies. He wanted to share in the miracle that was happening at Redeemer. And he knew the miracle was happening here because he had been here before, a year ago. He knew this was a place to be welcomed. So he came into my office and said, "Pastor, I have to tell you something." He says, "I'm a level 2 sex offender on the list, on the registry. And I have to tell you that." And I said, "Well, thank you for letting me know." I immediately got on the phone and started calling people saying, "Now what do I do?" And what we did was a few of us just kind of watched him and made sure he integrated correctly and that there were no issues and that he wasn't doing anything he shouldn't do. And he really did an awesome job. He did well. He never showed any signs of any problem. He went down and he scrubbed the floors over at the Ritchie building. He got down on his hands and knees and scrubbed the grease off those floors for us. He went under the water heater the best he could to scrub the grease out from under. I'm going to cry. Under the water heater. He scrubbed the walls. He scrubbed the counters. He even took the dishes out, if I remember correctly, and cleaned out inside the cupboards. And then he helped us at the chicken barbecue. He stood right there with us and he worked hard, flipping chickens. Well, then one day, many of us got a shock when we opened up the paper. There he was, arrested for forcible rape. My heart sank. I was sick to my stomach. Again, I got on the phone again. I'm really good at this. I pick up the phone and go, "Now what do I do?" It's a good thing I have people to call to say, "Help." I went up to see him. I felt God had put him in my care. I felt it was my responsibility. So I went. He had the chaplain at the jail call me and say that he was there. That was the first sign that I began to wonder about the charges. because why would you call your pastor? I talked to him. I've been up there 3 times. We've talked about God. We've talked about why God would let this happen. He's been angry at God. He's been in denial that this could possibly have happened to him. He's gone through all the steps of mourning that you hear about. Now he's just saying, why? He is taking it to trial because he says he is innocent. He never touched her. She knew he was on the offender list and therefore took advantage of the situation. Now, I was not there. I can't make the judgment. I'm only telling you what I have heard and what I know. He's taking it to trial. We are praying, of course, that justice will be done. Now, when he gets out, he's going to want to come back here. You know why? Because he's tasted that miracle. He's tasted that wine. And so we have already started talking. You've probably heard, excuse me. You have probably heard that we're working on a policy for if people on the registered list should come into our congregation and want to worship, because Jesus would not turn them away. Now, we're not talking, I will tell you, we're not talking pedophiles. That's a whole different issue, all right? Please understand that. That would be a legal issue that we would have to address in a whole other way, like having another adult-only service or something. All right? So we're not talking pedophiles. So we've started to work on this policy. And as we've talked about it, as we've worked on it, I think some of our hearts have begun to change, including mine. Have begun to open up to realize these are people who made some really stupid mistakes. And they are now branded for life. These are people that Jesus would reach out to. Redeemer is amazing. We have shown an incredible strength at stepping up and dealing with this issue without going off the deep end, without shutting our doors. We have stepped up to embrace the lowlifes, present company included, that Jesus would have embraced. The broken, the poor, the hurting, the sick, the desperate. This is a miracle, brothers and sisters. Do you hear that? This is a miracle. Do you know how many churches would shut their doors immediately? No matter what Jesus would have done, they would have shut their doors. But not Redeemer. I'm so proud of you guys. They may call us crazy, and I'm going to say yes, amen. Amen. We are out of our minds. Paul said, for the message about the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Where's the one who is wise? Where's the scribe? Where's the debater of the age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, God decided through the foolishness of our proclamation to save those who believe. It's foolishness. It's crazy. We're out of our minds. But it's a miracle. It's an incredible miracle. It's one that we have every right to be a little nervous about. It's one that can get messy. But Jesus is right there in the midst of that miracle with us, walking with us. And I believe it's okay. Now, does this mean our church is going to grow and we're going to get filled up and, we're going to be so popular? And I've got one more story to share with you. 2 pastors are talking. One pastor says to the other, so how's your church going? Oh, he says, it's going great. He says, I've been there about a year. We started off with about 20 people, and now we're up to 300 people, and it's incredible. He says, so how's your church going? To the other pastor. And he says, well, I'm not so sure. He says, we started out with about 20, 25. And I started preaching the gospel. I started preaching about love thy neighbor. I started preaching about forgiveness. I started preaching about reaching out to the broken. And now we're down to about 10 or 15. Gospel is not an easy thing to swallow. But the gospel is the most precious thing we own. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of every one of you here. Amen.